What's up, everybody, and welcome to the 25th episode of the Control Freak Podcast. I am your host, Alex Blackard, or @LessAlex on Twitter. Make sure to go follow me there. We are proudly sponsored by Solitary Pro and my Patreon. So if you want to help support the content, head on over to patreon.com/LessAlex and consider becoming a patron. All that information will be, of course, in the description below. Today I am joined by Jake Stehlik. What's up, bud? You were on last week. You're coming back again.
Yeah, talk about a little bit about Modern Pioneer, what's going on, talk about some deck lists. Played in a team event, did really, really well. So
yeah, you did. Yeah, today we are going to be talking about the SCG Invitational just concluded a couple hours ago. And yeah, the fact that blue-white control really wasn't anywhere to be found is kind of frightening for us blue mages. You're not necessarily a control mage, but you do
nope.
Sleeve up the Jace the Mind Sculptor on occasion.
I do. That is true. I enjoy a good old Jace time.
Yeah, so very cool stuff. I am stoked to get into it. Are you ready to get into this?
Let's talk about it.
All right, so the first thing that we're going to break down is we're going to break down these metagame percentage shares. And control fans, I am here to say it was not a good look. Pioneer and Modern were the formats that were played, and in both scenarios, I mean, it's real bad when you're in the other category, the quote-unquote other decks, and in both scenarios, blue-white control is considered to be one of the other decks. So let's get into this. For Modern metagame breakdown, Simic Urza is the most represented deck at 14%, which...
That's huge for Modern.
In Modern, you're right around like 7 to 10. That's like generally what the quote-unquote best deck is at. Holy smokes, 14.2%. That is just insane to me.
Anytime a deck starts breaking that 10% ish line, you need to start talking, what is this deck doing to the environment? It's like the format of Modern, the environment, and like the health of keeping the format just stable.
Right. One thing, though, to note about these numbers is this is kind of a very heavily metagamed tournament.
Yes.
So the the more well-informed players are going to tend to gravitate towards the deck that is in the know to be the best deck. Mm-hmm. But even with that said, we have Simic Urza at 14.2. We have Amulet Titan at 10.7. Grixis Death Shadow at 10.7. And Simic Urza at 10.7 as well. So a bunch of Urza decks is basically what I'm seeing. And then of course Amulet Titan, which is just a killer for blue-white. I mean, blue-white control. It just poops all over blue-white control. What is your takeaway from this Modern metagame here?
So looking at, I had to pull up a Simic Urza list because I actually didn't know what they're doing, and it turns out they're just actually playing Oko.
Yeah, it's just Oko.deck with Gilded Goose and probably some cryptic commands and stuff like that.
Cryptic commands, Metallic Rebuke for a counterspell interaction.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it's playing 4 Engineer Explosives as just a 0-drop. Probably could just answer everything.
Deals with everything. And with Gilded Goose, it can get to 5 if need be.
It's actually insane. I think after the ban Hogak, Urza's the terror of Modern and is relatively unhealthy for the format.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely tend to agree with that. I've been kind of saying it here. And actually, if you listened to episode 24, which you should go and do that if you're listening to this one, we actually had a bet that I think it's going to get banned in Standard. You do not. And if you're listening to this, you'll probably know that answer because this will air tomorrow, which will be Monday, and the banned and restricted announcement, unless you get up really early, it will be live. So we will know if Oko gets banned.
I don't think
what gets banned.
I don't think Oko's the like in this deck, Oko's not the reason this deck's winning. It's just another tool, like another like fight card that you have to deal with, not like a card you have to fight against. And I think Urza is just too good for Modern.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're not going to ban that card just because of how recent the set was, and Hogak was just a disaster.
Yeah. Oh, Hogak. Modern Horizons was very strong. I think that printed a lot of cards that no one really expected to come out of the gate. Because trying to convince a modern player that a card is modern playable is really hard.
Oh yeah, well that was the narrative whenever the very first came out. Was everyone's like, oh, this is a set they could have put in standard. Like that's what I was hearing from a lot of people, and I'm like, you're dead wrong. Looking back,
super powerful.
You're dead wrong. So yeah, I think that history, we'll be looking back on Modern Horizons in a couple of years or so and be like, holy smokes, they really juiced up the power level for that set. They needed a win though, remember, because the master sets that came out prior to that were just, all intents purposes, pretty much duds, at least from the that was the general feeling.
So at that point in time, they were really, really poorly looked upon. If you actually look at the EVs and the values and the cards that are in those sets now, they're really worth it open because there's a ton of Pioneer staples that happen to be iconic masters.
Yeah, go figure, right? Pioneer helped all the Modern Masters sets or whatever.
Let's talk about. Can we talk about Amulet Titan for a minute?
Absolutely. Let's get into it because this is a deck that really, really is.
This is a deck I always have a problem playing against. It fights you on so many
different levels,
so many angles, and wow, I was gonna find the list I had pulled up. It plays what, 29 lands?
29 lands, Field of Ruins.
Insane.
Yeah,
like Azusa. I feel like there could be a conversation about banning Azusa.
Wow. I don't know. I think that right now the metagame is so warped kind of around Urza decks. And the fact that, so to your point, you just said that Oko isn't the main issue, right? But to that point, it's not the main thing that makes the deck go, but man, does it give it reach.
Yes.
Like
that's very true.
The Urza deck before Oko, and I'm going to relate this a lot to Control because this is the Control Freak podcast. It wasn't egregious, but after playing against Oko versions of Urza, it's night and day. It's so hard to outgrind that deck when they have Oko on the table. If they resolve it, and they're playing Metallic Rebuke, so they have like what? That's a 1-mana counterspell, right?
Most of the time, because you're always gonna have those artifacts.
So that's really hard to deal with. It grinds so well. Even if they just make every turn, if they just make a food and then the next turn turn it into a dude, like that's really hard for Control to deal with.
So one other thing I have a question about is how does Tron do so well here? Because Tron got second, and looking at the lists and like the power level and what these individual decks are trying to do, I feel like Tron's kind of innocent here.
That's weird to say. I mean it still has free wins though. You got to keep that in mind. And it's very consistent at what it does. It's very consistent at what it does.
That is very fair. What it does the best at.
Yeah, putting Big Fatty Karn into play on turn 3, you either got it or you don't.
Like, is O-Stone just like the card that destroys these Urza decks? I'm looking at this Tron list. It has like playing one of Emrakul the Promised End, only one Ulavog the Ceaseless Hunger. Yeah. So I think they were really going all in on the Karn, the Great Creator plan, I feel.
Oh, yeah. I mean, lattice locking people is very real. And
yes. Well, I think Karn is so good against a Urza-style deck. Like the Karn Great Creator, because he automatically turns off all their artifacts.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't stop Urza that way, but you turn off anything like that would activate with artifacts. So you're already playing a naturally like good hate card versus them.
Yeah, and people say that like Stony Silence isn't good against the Urza decks because Urza has the ability to make all their stuff into Mox Sapphires. But like really, if you can slow them down enough, you can have success with against them.
Totally.
But yeah, I mean, Mono Green Tron is just always there. You know how many times there's been cards that they've printed and they're like, oh, this is the Death of Tron. Like Field of Ruin was like one of the most recent ones.
Like the 3 standard sets in a row, we had some form of hate card that was supposed to be the Tron killer.
Yeah. There was the Blood Moon variant. Blood Sun, rather.
That card was not going to kill Tron.
That's what people said, though. That's what people said.
Well, that's because during the time period, remember, like the big decks in Modern was Tron, Humans, and I mean, Always Burn, but
Death Shadow was good then too.
Yeah, but you're not like Tron's game plan is cool. You can fight against me turns 1 through 4. Turn 5, I might just play a Karn.
Yeah. Or at that point, Ugin, right?
Yeah, like
you could have the nut draw and play Ulamog on turn 5.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, is there anything in Modern you think needs to, besides like, what do you think needs to get talked about maybe in the ban hammer or getting unbanned in Modern? Like, could unbanning Splinter Twin change some of this?
Well, I think anytime you unban a card, the meta will kind of warp around that card for a couple of weeks just because people are going to try and test it and try and grind out the best possible version of the deck. We just saw that with the unbanning of Stoneforge Mystic.
I was going to say, where's Stoneforge in this entire thing? Like, looking at all these decks.
Well, as it turns out, Stoneforge Mystic on turn 2 does not beat turn 2 Titan crashing in, right?
No, it does not.
It was a huge misconception, I think, to say that Stoneforge was like too egregious for Modern, and it turns out that it's actually just like not good enough. To your point,
I played it like all weekend, and like at the team event, and I know that's like a small tournament compared to like these large.
It's 63 player or 21 team 63 player tournament. So
yeah, like
got second at, by the way.
Our team gets second. I was on green, white, red, and taxes, so I have a little bit experience of playing like the Stoneforge lists.
Yeah.
And it just kind of felt, there wasn't anything, like it didn't win me the game particularly any time. I think the card that won me the game more than anything was Thought on Seer, and Stoneforge really was not. I mean, Sophie won me a couple games, but no. Stoneforge was not the deciding card in that deck, and I don't think it's the de facto best winning card in anything. I think even like in the blue-white Stoneblade decks, you lose to Teferi or Jace the Mind Sculptor more often than you.
Yeah, and to your point, Eldrazi Tron actually did get 5th in the Invitational.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, what could they bring in or ban in Modern to change this? Kind of I don't want to say that it's stale, but like from a control player's perspective, it's like, where the hell is control? Because before Oko, we were right there, right? We were like right there on the cusp of being
4% about.
Well, just in general, in talking about like, if you want to talk about tiers, and I'm not a huge fan of like, this deck is tier 1, this deck is tier 2, especially in a format like Modern where play the deck that you know and you're going to have success with it. If you know your matchups, if you know what to bring in and out and know what to expect from your opponent, you're going to have good success. So the tier thing is like, I'm not necessarily about that. But in the general sense of tier program, it was right there at being number 1. And then Oko came and just like elked everything.
Oh yeah, it's not even like they play Oko and they just go tick up, make a food, make an elk, make a food, make an elk, make a food, make an elk.
Yeah.
And there comes a point where we're like, well, I've wrathed the board 3 times with Supreme Verdict. I've bounced your elks with Jace, and Oko's at like 40 loyalty.
Yeah, it's impossible. It's impossible to beat that card.
And the blue-white colors aren't great at killing planeswalkers either.
But I don't know. I guess banning Urza would obviously like kill the deck, right? But
you can't. I think if you want to neuter the deck a little bit, not just like absolutely kill it. Maybe
maybe.
I think Snowball makes some really cool decks. I think that you just find another 0-drop artifact that does something close.
My issue with Astrolabe is it draws a card when it enters, and it kind of makes the whole point of Magic non-existent because it's a color. These colors all do different and cool things, fun things, and then you have this card that just like says, okay, I can just play 5 colors if I really wanted. So
what about Opal?
I am personally against the banning of that card. I don't know if I've actually said that on this podcast, but I mean, if you've talked to me in person or whatever and asked me this question, I think that card is very good. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's fine. Although I could see them banning, like with all that being said, and we talked about this last week, right? We talked about.
I think we did.
We talked about the fact that. Is it time to just, cut the head off the dragon, cut the head off the Hydra, and just ban the card that... Because there's been so many times KCI was a deck that was just egregious and too good, so they banned KCI. And now this Urza deck's around, and like Urza before Oko was printed, Urza was still very good. It was a top-tier deck, and now... with Simic Urza and Simic Wurza, whether you want to put Whir of Invention in the deck or not, it's kind of either way. The deck is very.
It doesn't
good.
Even need it anymore. If a deck that had a like Urza is a really cool deck. Look at the iterations of how it's evolved and the different like there's 4 different ways of building Urza.
There's so many. There's so many, dude.
Normal Urza so there's normal basic Urza, there's Wurza, there's paradoxical Urza, there's Oko Urza.
You could play Grixis Urza, like old school Grixis Urza. You could play Urza with Stoneforge Mystic, like
Sword combo Urza.
Sword combo, yeah, that's the one I was.
There's 8 different ways of playing Urza.
Yeah, there's so many. It's just like at that point, and that's kind of the reason so you were talking about Splinter Twin earlier. The reason they ended up banning Splinter Twin wasn't because of its like win percentage or its metagame share or any of that. It was the fact that so many different versions of that deck. There was Tarmo or what's the name? There was
Teamer.
Teamer, yeah, there was Teamer. Yeah. There was just blue-red. There was Jeskai. There was just so many ways to build that deck, and I feel like we're kind of getting to that point with Urza. So,
where is he like? I mean, costs 4 mana. He's all like. He taps something else. He's kind of like the artifact Splinter Twin.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good way to put it. Maybe just 4 mana combo pieces that synergize well with blue cards just might be
kind of scary to print, Wizards.
Yeah. Speaking of cards that are scary to print, let's shift over to the Pioneer metagame. Holy smokes, Wizards, please, for the love of God, stop printing free cards. It's egregious. They're never good, or rather, they're too good. Mono Green Devotion, Hardened Scales. These decks are just chock full of Once Upon a Time.
Oh my gosh! Not just Once Upon a Times, but all of the X-drop artifacts. Like all of the X-drop artifacts they've printed since Kaladesh or just Hangerback Walker is in there. Ballista Stone Coil Serpent.
I like to call it Stone Cold Serpent. Like
that's
Stone Cold Steve Austin. And he just comes in and stunners all the Okos into fairies in the format.
No,
he's pro multicolor, so he can't be targeted by him. Definitely the anti-Oko card for sure.
Definitely.
But yeah, Once Upon a Time, if you don't watch my YouTube at all, don't subscribe to me there. Make sure to head on over there because I've been making a lot of videos recently that aren't blue-white control. I've been kind of stepping outside my range a little bit, but I played a Kethis combo deck that heavily relied on Oath of Nissa, but now the deck plays 4 Once Upon a Times, and honestly, if they ban Once Upon a Time, the deck already took a huge hit from
banning the Oath.
From banning Oath. That card was great early, and obviously it's a legendary piece, so it actually works towards your combo in the late game. But if they ban Once Upon a Time, I'm pretty sure that deck just dies.
You're asking for you're playing a really greedy deck at
It's
that
a
point.
It's a 4-color
Combo
combo
deck.
Yeah, in a
Yeah,
format with no fetches. Yeah.
exactly.
But enough about because the Kethis deck is sweet. Y'all should go check out that video. But enough about that deck. Mono black aggro. So the player who won the tournament played mono black aggro. Chris Barone. He played mono black aggro in Pioneer, and he played humans in in Modern. So obviously this mono black aggro deck won the first online PTQ. So I personally wasn't too surprised. I know a lot of people coming into this tournament were very high on the mono green devotion and the hardened scales deck, which it was funny because the whole the Vivian Arcbow Ranger, if you're following all along on Twitter over the weekend, like Friday, everyone was trying to get Vivian Arcbow Rangers. Like some of the grinders were opening boxes upon boxes of Corset 20.
That's like the 4 green.
Yeah, it's triple green 1. It's plus puts counters on creatures, so obviously it's just like super good in hardened scales, and it's
$20 now.
Yeah, it's insane. And it's also in a couple of the mono green devotion decks as at least a one of, I believe. But yeah, these decks, especially the mono black aggro deck, it's really sweet.
It's really cool.
It has like kind of a control field to it because you have the murderous riders and you have the fatal pushes, so you get to like pick your spots when you want to pump the brakes, or if you just want to slam down the accelerator and just go full on assault mode. So
and it has so much it can grind.
Recursion. Oh my god, the recursion.
Bloodstoke Champion, Scrap Heap Scrounger, and you also have Copter. How good does it feel to go like turn 3 crew, Night Market Lookout, crew, Copter, swing, discard, Bloodstoke Champion, return Bloodstoke Champion?
It's insane. That's insane.
A crazy good line. That's just one I looked at. And then Rankle.
Rankle is insane because you can pick all 3 modes on Rankle, which I did not know. But yeah.
It says choose any. And the really cool part about Rankle is because of how they changed how the semicolon cards, not semicolon, multiple modal cards work where you choose, you go down the list now.
Yeah.
If they have a card they've had in their hand for a couple turns, they're like, ooh, I want to get rid of that card, but I really want to draw a card. Then you go, discard the card I know about. Now we're going to draw
a card. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, if you watched any of the tournament, he was just running people over with this deck. In the finals, he won against his mono green opponent, mono green devotion. It was Adam Franzi. He 3-0'd him in the finals, and it wasn't even close. In game 2, he didn't even have a good hand or a good start.
Wow.
So, it's insane. The deck, there was a lot of talk. I know a lot of people, after I put out my video on the deck last week, people were, messaging me and DMing me and stuff, and, is this deck for real? Or, is this just kind of like a one-shot wonder? And I was like, no. It's pretty nuts.
So, when a new format, standard rotation, new format, things get banned in Modern, the best thing you can ever do, usually, is just play an aggressive deck. And that's just kind of the truth. And
yeah.
So what I see what mono black aggro does is versus the terror known as mono green devotion currently right now, you just play a deck that's, if they don't do something incredibly dumb on turn 3 with Nykthos,
right,
you just win.
Yeah, if they don't go Burning Tree.
Well, Burning Tree, Nykthos, Whisperwood.
Yeah, Whisperwood, that's it.
Actually, the mono green devotion got second place is not even running Whisperwood.
There you go.
It's going for Voracious Hydra and Vivian Arcbow Ranger. And that's who shakes the world.
Yeah, Voracious Hydra is really proving to be a very strong card in Pioneer.
Well, it does a lot, and we always get standard Hydras. And I'd say of the 100% of standard Hydras that get since I don't know, let's go cons because that's my good frame of reference. That's Hooded Hydra.
Well, you got to think back to Theros too, because they did have
that's true.
Pelucranos was to me, Pelucranos and Mistcutter were the best Hydras in a long time.
Pulukranos really didn't have the Hydra ability. Like, it wasn't really a great Hydra. It was just a really good, effective,
Yeah.
well-costed card.
That's true. It didn't have like XX.
And Mistcutter didn't have the Hydra feel. Like, it had an X cost in it, but it just said can't be countered Pro Blue haste.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't really a great feeling of like a true Hydra. But I mean, like,
I see what you're saying.
Very typical, the very stereotypical Hydras in Magic. Like, Voracious Hydra is a very normal Hydra.
Yeah.
Where it either gets bigger, but also can fight something. And a mono green, oh, well, a 6/6 is still 6. Like, a 6/6 that fights something when ETB is really good. You don't even have to double up the counters. Like, you're making so much mana anyways.
Absolutely. So, but just taking a look at this Pioneer metagame breakdown, kind of blue-white control or Esper control or blue-black control I've seen people playing. Again, in the 24.9% of the other category.
Which is really surprising. Like, what the Pioneer player that was in our Tina show was on Saturday was playing
blue-white. He was playing Approach, yeah.
And he wasn't playing Approach, he was just playing blue-white Fae. And
well, no, he had an Approach, though.
Yeah, I knew that, but like...
it wasn't like a dedicated Approach deck, right?
And watching him play, that deck seems fantastic. And not even seeing it up in like the Azorius Flash, don't look at that. That's hardly
an Azorius. Completely different deck, yeah.
That's hardly an Azorius, even Azorius Flash deck. But I don't see. I thought that deck was fantastic. I thought the deck performed incredibly well. I think he played it well. I think the deck's powerful, but man, it's not even like up in the percentages.
Yeah, I think though, kind of what you just said, playing aggressive deck in this format right now. I said it a couple weeks ago. I was trying out Esper Control because I wanted to have access to Thoughtseize and I wanted to have access to Fatal Push.
That's fair.
I know the play pad
are pinnacles of the format.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Thoughtseize is, in my opinion, the best card in the format.
Oh, without a doubt.
I mean, Oko's obviously just egregious, but and Once Upon a Time's very strong too. But I think a lot of that has to do with the terrain of the format currently.
Yeah.
And the fact that Mono Black Aggro won the format, so both of the, that card is in that deck.
Is Pioneer more healthy than Modern right now, do you think?
I mean, just look at the metagame percentage. The top deck was Hardened Scales. It was 12.4. Then we have Mono Green Devotion was 11.2. Mono Black Aggro was 6.5. So that's a huge drop-off. If you look at the top 4 decks from Modern, the top 4 decks are all above 10%.
That's huge.
I mean, yeah, it's like 40, almost half. Almost half of the percentage.
14,
That's insane.
I think it's actually a little bit over.
So, and then we have Mono Black Aggro, and then we have Simic Aggro. Isn't in Soul, which that deck is insane.
That deck's obnoxious. That deck is super good.
In Soul, Artifact, and Shrapnel Blast in the same deck, can confirm, is insane. Just it's a free 5 points of damage almost every time you strap it and attack with it.
Not only that, but that weird. There's a core set like the core 2020. There's like a 3-drop creature that makes something into a 5/5.
Yeah.
As that deck's evolved, it went from like, oh, this is our like 5th copy of Ensoul. Oh, now it's our 6th. Okay, now we're just playing 8 copies of Ensoul Artifact.
Yeah, that card is very, very good. Skilled Animator. For 3 mana, you get to turn a thing into a 5/5. Are you kidding me?
Also, Stone Coil Serpent with that seems insane.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we're going to buy 4/4, a 9/9.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty great. The deck is kind of a glass cannon in the way that you kind of got to kill him pretty quickly. It doesn't have the reach that Mono Black Aggro does, but it is, I believe, a little bit more explosive than Mono Black Aggro.
Then Banned Ramp is just goalless, right? Yeah, it's just a goal.
Yeah.
Oh wait, it's not even a goalless deck. It's just a ramp. It's actually just a ramp.
Does it have the Hydra?
No. The Bant Ramp deck just looks like it's going into Ugin.
Oh wow.
It actually doesn't. It just goes into Ugin and Teferi with and has Oko. Like it doesn't.
Okay, yeah. Our Promise is a card that I'm not, MTG finance guy or by any means, but holy smokes, is this card's finding homes.
It's powerful. A ramp card that also makes bodies is weird, and
It's definitely unique, yeah.
it's. Oh, I guess you have Field of Dead. It's just a field. You're just playing Field of Dead. I hate that card.
I saw Mingucci posted a picture of his band, or he was playing blue-green ramp, and it was literally 10 mana dorks and then like some payoffs.
Yeah.
Like Hydroid Crisis and stuff, and I'm like, what? Like it just had elves. It had elves, the goose, and then like the other one drop duder guy. And I'm like, okay, so we're just relying on Oko. It's basically like the standard deck.
Yeah.
It relies on Krasis and Oko.
Pioneer is such a sweet format. I like all the cards. I like the.
I dig it.
I'm honestly surprised Phoenix didn't put up higher as it did, because I feel like that was the deck. That's a deck that every time I talk to someone about Phoenix, or there's something they're just talking like this deck is just as good as the modern one.
That's surprising to hear. That they would say that, but I think a lot of people were ready for graveyard decks. So for instance, the winning deck, Mono Black Aggro, he was playing 4 Leyline of the Voids in the sideboard. So he was ready. The Steven Dykeman with Golgari Delirium was playing.
Oh, I love this deck.
Was playing. I know you do. Scavenging Ooze main, and then Scavenging Ooze the sideboard. So that's very good, obviously.
So I want to talk about Delirium deck for a little bit, because this was my standard deck.
Yeah.
This is like I called when the Shadows over Innistrad went to the Eldritch Moon. Everyone's like, why are you getting Delirium cards? They're not going to put Delirium support. They're going to put in. I mean, someone said Clues was going to be like the highest support archetype.
Yeah.
And
how wrong they were.
How wrong when they were. When the minute I saw Grimflare, I'm like, guys, this deck is going to be great. This deck is actually insane.
Ishkanah, oh my god! As a control player, that card just gives you so many fits because it just is so many damn bodies.
And every time I land at Ishkanah against blue-white flash,
you win.
Someone just looked at me and was like, really? I'm like, dude, how do you say this card is insane?
That's like honestly one of the cards that I didn't get to play with much, that I really wish I did, because I love cards that like Hornet Queen just brings you so many bodies with one card and presents so much card advantage. At the end of the day, I just love card advantage.
I like little creatures that make a lot of bodies. Like Hornet Queen's a small thing, but it makes one creature that makes an army. Those cards are so cool to see. Actually, like when they're good enough to actually fit into to be good enough to see play in the format they're in. It's so sweet.
And this deck is like also very akin to, and I mean Jund is too in Modern, to a control deck. It wants to 1-for-1. Yeah. It wants to 1-for-1 their opponent, and then either land a big threat that's going to win the game, or a planeswalker. And this is definitely what this deck wants to do. And Vrasco Golgari Queen is like $25 now or some nonsense. Like
it's absurd. Not only that, but Castle Locthwain in this deck looks fantastic.
Castle Locthwain in the Mono Black Aggro deck is actually just insane, because you won't never lose more than 3 life. And this, I could see you losing like quite a bit of life, but still probably pretty great.
This deck's sweet. See if there's any more cool things to talk about in this. I'm just mostly repeating. One deck that I'm surprised is like nowhere up here is, where is the Marvel decks?
No, we've kind of touched on that in previous episodes, but it kind of just seems to me that it's a bad block constructed deck.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that deck is sweet. I played the hell out of that deck in Standard before it got banned, of course. And then Yeah, just turns out that casting a lay of the land on turn 1 is not so great in this format where people are killing you on turn 4 or 5.
Like, and what are they going to do? What is Ulamog going to do when Ulamog comes down, picks off Bloodsoe Champion Smuggler's Copter, and you're at 5, and your opponent looks at you and goes, Rankle?
Yeah, right.
And you're just like, oh no, and then Rankle swings in, you sacrifice Ulamog, and then you lose.
Yeah. One deck I do want to talk about here in Pioneer that I was actually real down on, and I actually thought it was pretty dead because of the banning of Veil of Summer, is Simic Nexus. Simic Nexus was 5.9% of the metagame, so it was 6th overall in the most played decks. And I got to admit, I was wrong on this one. I thought that deck was very dead.
So,
and this is a deck that I played a bit in Standard and have played in Pioneer. It was actually the first deck I got on Card Hoarder whenever I wanted to play Pioneer. And yeah, I mean, it showed out. It got 12th. Chase Masters got 12th with the deck.
So I think with banning Veil of Summer, I think Tamiyo kind of like Veil of, like, also like the extra Veil of Summers. It fights against Lazatep Plating is basically the same card.
Well, it's a mana more, but yeah.
It also can just win the game.
That's true. Once you start taking extra turns too. And Swan Song. So something too, somebody tweeted at me was like, oh, and I made the counter argument kind of in jest, but at the same time, I mean, Swan Song's a real deal. Swan Song is like a fine card. It's definitely not Veil of Summer by any means, but there is one copy in the sideboard here.
It's an interesting counterspell. So I'm not a big counterspell fan, but I always like I like counterspells that either have to meet a condition to be good or that do something that's really cool. And like my favorite counterspell of Magic is Stubborn Denial, without a doubt.
Stubborn Denial is great. You've killed me with that many a times.
I have killed many a control player and you with Stubborn Denial. And it's cards like that make for cool interactive games rather than just like basic counterspell.
I love the fact that Supreme Will here as a 3 of in this 12th place deck. That card I played a bunch of in Standard. I love that it's showing up in Pioneer.
The card's fine. So I think everyone always has a negative like look on cards like Supreme Will, that where it's like it's 2 cards in one. It costs a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's Mail Leak and Impulse.
Well, I tried it. If you've been rocking with the podcast for a while, you know that like whenever I review sets, by the way, you all are great. You support the heck out of those episodes. Those are like some of my best. Some of my best episodes, like metrics wise. Those were the best ones. But I like to point out cards that may potentially see play. So I was playing Supreme Will. I tried it in Blue-White Control and Modern. It's turned out not to be good enough, but if you're listening to this or if you're watching this, like, don't just cookie cut these lists, right? Because I'll link all these lists and all this stuff to the description and everything in the show notes and all that jazz. Don't just cookie cut them. The sideboards are going to be 100% dependent on what your metagame is. If you play FNMs and you play at your LGSs and all that stuff, then don't just take these 75.
If you play Pioneer FNM and you know for a fact there happens to be 3 guys who want to say I want Marvel work and
play Teferi. Play Teferi 3.
And if you're not preparing for your local meta, then you're making a mistake. Also, don't ever cookie cut a list. Unless it's a combo deck, because you really can't change like ad nauseum very well.
You always have a couple flex cards like in Kethis, because that's the deck that I've been jamming a bunch of Pioneer.
That's your control deck. That's your combo deck.
There's a couple of cards you can flex spot, but yeah, Blue-White Control in both Pioneer and Modern are super malleable. That's what's so awesome, and that's one of the reasons I think that Control fans are so diehard about Control, is that because the metagame's always shifting, so is the configuration of the deck.
Oh yeah. It's always, you always have to change your deck to kind of how you play. Like blue-white control has so many cool different play styles. You can go like super hardcore control.
Yeah.
You can go kind of lighter on the control, more on like the Planeswalker package. You can play Stoneblade, which is, I know it's not like a control deck, but it plays very similarly to it.
There was a 5-0 list, and I do like to point out the 5-0 list, but also take them with a grain of salt because they separated. They no longer have competitive and casual leagues anymore. It's all just the same thing.
Uh-huh.
So take those with a grain of salt. But there was a 5-0 list that was playing like 15 Planeswalkers in Pioneer. It was like Esper Control, but it had like 15 Planeswalkers. God. Yeah, I don't know if it was this week or last week. I do remember seeing it, though, and it was just like awesome. Like, so to your point, you can build control however you choose, but just make sure that you have your metagame in mind. If you're going to a PTQ, probably build to what you see online and what the overall general consensus is. Maybe you want to build more of a stock build. But if you're playing an F&M and you know that one of the best players is playing Burn, maybe it's time to pack some life gain. So, yeah, I mean, kind of get off on a tangent there, but
oh yeah,
it's the Tangent Podcast. No.
It's important to talk about how you play locally as well as to talk about these big tournaments, because these are the decks you're going to see at your local meta now, and
yeah, absolutely.
These are things you have to plan for. Like absolutely. If your local meta is very like St. Louis is a very, if you're coming to St. Louis, you better be ready for some Burn
and blue-white.
Blue-white and Burn.
I thank you very much.
Blue-white and Burn. That is the entire St. Louis in a nutshell. I don't know about the rest of the states, but St. Louis is a Burn and blue-white control hotspot. So you better be ready for the two.
I've been preaching the good word of blue-white. It is spread like a wildfire.
I can tell you from a player, there are noticeably more blue-white players in the St. Louis metagame comparative to, 2 or 3 years ago, which I thank you for, because Taxes has a very good
yeah, right. You're welcome, bud.
I played Gaddick to get his blue-white control. They're like Asper was throwing a fit at me. He's like, I can't do anything. I'm like, yeah, that's the point.
That's the point, bud. Oh man, that's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these decks though, because they only show us the top 16. In Pioneer, it's a lot of hardened scales. Is it in Soul, one Simic Nexus, hardened scales, Mono Black Aggro a couple times. Mono Black Aggro got 9th place as well as winning the tournament. So I think.
Sorry,
no, you're good.
For tomorrow with the ban and restricted announcements, are they going to combine the Pioneer with the general one? Because we have a general one tomorrow as well, right?
Yeah, tomorrow is actually, I'm assuming, after lunch, of course.
Well, we have to reduce the expense for lunch. Forgot about
after
that.
5 p.m. Central Time, after we've had supper and dinner and lunch. No, I think they will just put it all out at the same time.
I feel like that's a smart move. Let's make some predictions for Modern.
Some predictions for Modern. You go first, and then I'll go first in Pioneer.
All right. For Modern, I think that there's an actual talk about banning something from Urza. I don't want to say Urza because I think Urza is a cool build around card. I think the card is. I think Urza itself is fine for Modern, but I think they need to think about banning maybe like Emery. Like, because if Emery gets banned, I don't think too many people are going to be upset.
I just don't know if that.
Opal, maybe. I think it's Emery or Opal. I think you ban one of the two.
I don't think so. Of those two, I don't think banning Emery does enough, because Emery's only like really great in the Jeskai Ascendancy builds, and neither of those were like particularly egregious.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things.
I kind of, maybe you just have to ban Urza. Maybe you have to just give Urza, like, maybe Urza was too good.
I think if you really want to kill the deck, you do ban, you ban Urza. But I think, and I hate to say this because of what I said earlier in the cast, and I've been saying for years, maybe it is just time to kill Mox Opal. Because it's a constant problem. It's like, it's like in school.
Everything Faithless Looting ever touched was gross. No, like very few fair decks played Faithless Looting besides like Mardu Pyromancer. Try me another card like Simeon Spirit Guide. No fair deck in Magic. There's no fair deck in Magic that plays Simeon Spirit Guide. That card is just if you play Simeon Spirit Guide or Elvish Spirit Guide, I think it is.
Yeah.
You are committed to saying I'm not playing a fair deck. I have a plan to do something that's broken and dumb.
I want to see Merfolk Spirit Guide. Where's Merfolk Spirit Guide?
That's
our Fairy Spirit Guide,
Yeah, give every color a Spirit Guide.
Yeah.
That'd be gross.
Yeah, definitely not ever going to happen.
No. So I think you talk about Urza. Titan, I think we need to have the discussion about either like Azusa or...
Maybe it's just Once Upon a Time, right?
Does the deck play...
Yes, it does.
I think Once Upon a Time...
It's free. It's so good. That card is so good. Like... Speaking from playing Kethis, you almost want to just draw that card every single turn in Kethis, even if you have to pay 2 mana. But if you have an opening hand, and I assume this is true in probably every deck that card is in, if you have an opening hand and 1 land in your hand, you're probably keeping that hand. If you have Once Upon a Time plus 1 land and 5 cards that are in your deck, you're gonna probably keep that hand because you can just go play my land, go. They play their land, they pass back. You get to draw your card, so that's an additional card off the top, and then you get to cast your thing. Come on, it's insane.
It's really good.
I'm not saying, and again, for those listening, for those watching, I'm not saying that they should ban any of this, or
this is just
they even will. It's just a conversation about what could happen, and you all know by the time that this is out.
You'll know. Other than that, I think everything else is fine. I mean, you're not going to ban something out of Burn.
No,
you're not going to ban something out of Eldrazi-tron. I think Urza and Titan are the two decks where I think something might be on the X.
I think if you turn too many knobs, though, you can lose what's the actual problem. Because if Urza is creating a metagame that is so warped around it, and you ban something out of both Urza and Titan, maybe you don't need to do that. Maybe having such a powerful Urza deck that the mid-range decks and the control decks can't really fight against is making it to where Titan is just, raffle stomping every other deck.
Yes, that's right.
So I think probably hitting one thing, if anything. I don't know if Modern really needs a ban, because right now I'm super biased. Just because blue-white control isn't putting up results doesn't necessarily mean that the format needs banned. But when I look at the metagame share and I see there's 4 decks that have about 50% of the metagame share, that's a problem.
That's something we need to start having a conversation.
Yeah.
Let's go to Pioneer.
Pioneer bans. Pioneer bans, they said, in the inception, they're going to ban something every single Monday, which personally, someone who and I get it, cards are expensive, cards cost money. I am in a privileged position to be able to obtain cards pretty easily in paper, and I, use an online rental service, so I don't play much in paper anyways. So I get that. I understand, bans, for lack of a better term, suck. But I like it. The fact that they can unban something too. I forget who it was, but somebody said, it was Evan Irwin on the Magic Mice podcast, which you all should go check them out. They're really great. Being able to turn those knobs and unban and kind of keep it as a fluid format and constantly changing, I think is something that's really fun. Obviously, for tournament preparation, it's kind of not great. But you and I both have the same amount of time to prepare if there's a ban, unless you somehow know something inside, which I'm sure that does happen to a little bit extent, but probably not too egregious.
No.
But I love the fact that they can kind of tweak it. But kind of getting back, I could see Once Upon a Time. I would hate for that to happen because I've been having a blast with Kethis. But if that happens, then, the mono green deck, they've got to do something about it, because it's been in the tournament kind of shows the point that it's been dominating.
I think
it didn't necessarily win this one, but having multiple copies in the top 8.
It's a scare. Keep going. I'll talk in a minute.
I think the real problem might be Nykthos, but I think that they would probably start with Once Upon a Time just because it's a free spell. And for God's sakes, Wizards, stop printing free spells. Because they always say, yeah, free spells are bad for the game. And then, like, Throne of Eldraine, here we go. Here's another one.
And the weird thing with Throne, there was no cycle of them. There's just a green card.
When I saw Once Upon a Time spoiled, I was like, yes, there's going to be a cycle of free spells. I wonder what the blue and the white one do. Nope. I was thinking like something like a Swords of Plowshares or something, or like a free bounce spell. That would have been cool for blue. I didn't ever think we were going to get a free counter spell, but like a free like unsummon, or even like something that's 3 mana normally, or it bounces something. It bounces target non-land permanent. That would have been sick. We didn't get that though, and now we're left with Once Upon a Time.
Just Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think for Pioneer bans, I think Burning Tree Emissaries.
Yeah, I could see that.
I think that's the card. If you want to make Mono Green Devotion pay a little bit more, then get rid of Burning Tree.
If you want to specifically hit Mono Green, because obviously that doesn't hit any other deck, but if you want to really shake the metagame up, because if you do that, what's going to happen is the Hardened Scales decks are going to get a bunch better, or rather, more percentage of the metagame. So,
what do you ban on Hardened Scales?
Once Upon a Time would be the card.
It doesn't. Oh yeah, it plays. Yeah, I think so. I think tomorrow, if we see Once Upon a Time and Burning Tree.
Oh man, that just kills the Devotion deck, right? If that's the case.
So no. There's the Aether Revolt card that says add green to your mana pool. So
Nylea's Disciple?
No, there's a Aether Revolt.
Oh, sure.
There's an Aether Revolt card that has Revolt, green. If you want to keep the deck alive, if you're really that devoted to it, if you are that devoted to the deck and you want to play it, then play a card that takes an extra step, because it's literally the same thing, and Burning Tree Emissary is just too good.
Maybe I don't know. Like talking bans, and I know we've been talking a lot of bans, but it is very relevant because literally when this airs, the ban will be announced. Probably poor timing on my part on scheduling all my podcasts to go up at midnight on Monday morning. That's besides the point. I don't like really wondering what's going to be banned, or like advocating X or Y should be banned, because at the end of the day, Wizards is going to do what's best for business.
Yeah.
If they see that tournament numbers, or like for Arena, if they see that Arena numbers are dipping because of Oko's insane, also you're gonna be playing some Blue-Eye Control, brother, because Oko is for sure getting banned in Standard. But I don't know. It's just kind of like, it's kind of not. It doesn't do anyone good, except it's fun. It's fun to talk about like what they will and won't ban, but like at the end of the day, it doesn't really accomplish anything.
I agree.
But yeah, I hope something happens in Modern, because I would like to play Modern again eventually, because there's just no feasible way to play Modern online when you're running into every other deck is Titan or Urza.
Yeah, I agree. I very much agree with that.
So that'd be cool if something happened to one of those two decks. And then in Pioneer, I think something will happen. They've been very aggressive about bans, so I definitely think something will get banned.
Not just aggressive, but the bans are making make sense.
Makes sense. Yeah, no, it's been great. A lot of the times, some of the things that they ban in formats not named Pioneer are just kind of like head scratchers, or it's just like the deck that a card is in is just like egregious and they have to ban it.
Yeah.
Like the last BNR or the last time that we saw a huge ban was the banning of. The last time we saw a big ban and restricted announcement was a Faithless Looting one, because we had Faithless Looting get banned and then Stoneforge Mystic get unbanned, and that was just like the craziest, unexpected thing ever.
I remember where I was when Stoneforge Mystic got unbanned.
Yeah, it was nuts.
So it's less like, it's fun to talk about things that get banned, but it's really cool to see, but they're gonna unban.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about Pioneers. There's no, well, there are ban cards now, but there wasn't. And the bans that they've made thus far, we know were probably for the betterment of the format, although I would argue that Oath of Nissa was not the problem. If you wanted to shut down the green deck, you should have just banned Once Upon a Time, or just hit Nykthos.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I'm obviously biased because that card is very good at Kethis.
Insane.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty good wrap on everything. Do you have anything in terms of the Invitational or the state of the metagames of the two formats?
Other than I think we just need some time. I think that if you want to fix some of these things, the next modern inspired set or standard set needs to have a few like actual answers to the format, in the sense like Assassin's Trophy was a very good answer, Dampening Sphere is a very good answer. I think we need some modern specific answer cards that push players to playing like that, kind of like, or not, because like Dampening Sphere fits in every single deck in Modern.
Yeah.
Or can fit in every single deck in Modern. I think next standard needs to have, like whatever the next set is, needs to have some form of answer for Urza. If you want to keep Urza in Modern, we need to have an answer for it. If you want to keep Prime Time in Modern, we need to have an answer for it. And I think that's where we're at, is we need an answer. And
but Jake, you can elk your opponent's Urza.
You can elk it. That's.
I mean, it's Oko's just dominating it.
But they're not going to ban it. They're not going to ban it.
I think you really don't think they're going to ban it in Standard?
Is this going to be our closing remarks for this?
We've already made the bet. Like,
we already made the bet. So if you were not aware of this, we made the bet that if Oko gets banned in Standard tomorrow, that Alex will have to play a Savage Knuckleblade deck.
It's not going to happen, man.
I have actually have a really cool Pioneer list planned out for you, bud. But if Oko does get banned Tuesday night, I'm playing some Blue-White Control.
Yeah, and it's going to be awesome, and I will tweet about it, so you should all follow me, because we'll see this jabroni playing some Blue-White Control.
If I had to play Teferi, I'd be pissed. It's not even Jason. I hate Teferi. I hate 5-man Teferi with a passion. I don't want to play that card. I'm going to get like a judge calling me how many times because I forgot to untap my lands.
It's a May now. You don't have to.
Okay, good. I'm not. If I forget,
you just refuse to untap them. Oh man, that's good stuff. Do you have anything you want to tell the good listeners or viewers?
Keep playing Magic. Keep your heads up. Keep playing Pioneer.
Pioneer. Sweet.
Don't close your eyes to Modern either. I think Modern just needs an answer. It needs some help. I think that in the next, 3 months from now, Modern will be a different format. This is just how it goes.
That's how it is, man.
That's how every 3 months, I think we get about a bit of a rotation. If you don't like Modern right now, don't sell it Modern. Just keep your cards, and when Modern gets sweet again, don't be the guy who sold out of Modern and just like, oh, now I want to play Modern again. I have to buy everything.
Absolutely. I definitely agree.
It'll get better. It always does.
Yep. All right. Well, with all of that being said, thank you everybody for hanging out. Again, I'm Les Alex. This is the Control Freak Podcast, episode 25. It's crazy. If you've been rocking with me from the beginning, or this is your first episode watching or listening, I appreciate you. You are definitely appreciated. And As always, sponsored by Team Solitary Pro and the patrons. All their links and all the links to the patron will be in the description below, as well as all of the metagame breakdowns and all of that stuff. All those links will be in the description below. So thank you, everyone. And as always, have a great night.
Night.